The Chicago Bears always seem to find one gem in every undrafted rookie free agent class. And this year's group has a couple of names that have a decent shot to make the 53-man roster.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1, and you can follow the podcast at Locked On Bears on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, where you can keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into an Xbox. No console needed. Head to amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. On the show today, we're going to break down this Chicago Bears 53-man roster probabilities for the undrafted rookie free agent class. The Bears announced officially 10 signings of undrafted players, and one of them in particular stands out above the rest to me as the guy with the best shot to make the roster, but then there's a few others that I think are going to be right in this mix. Even as the Bears continue to add talent, some of these guys are coming at positions where there are more opportunities and less depth there, where a UDFA could actually make some noise to make the roster, not to be a starter or a major contributor this upcoming season. The name that really jumps out, well, I guess before just to tease that, before we jump into the specific player, we'll go through quickly the 10 players the Bears did sign officially as undrafted free agents. All of them, I think, had been reported up to this point, but the Bears made it official with rookie minicamp starting this weekend. They signed running back Deion Hankins from Texas State. They signed 2 wide receivers, John, or I believe he's been J.P. Richardson from TCU, and Jade Walker from Texas A&M. They got 2 defensive ends, Xavier Carlton from California and Jeremy Robinson from Kansas. They got a linebacker, Power Eccles from North Carolina, 2 safeties, Major Burns from LSU and Tysheem Johnson from Oregon, and then 2 special teams players, a kicker, Jonathan Kim from Michigan State, and a long snapper, Luke Elkin from Iowa. But out of all of those names, having gone through each of them individually here, the one that stands out to me as both the most intriguing player and also at a position where he's got one of the more clearer paths to the 53-man roster is Oregon safety Tysheem Johnson. He, to me, stands out as a full notch above a lot of those other players. And we're talking about undrafted free agents here, so it's not to say that Tysheem Johnson is going to come in and be some crazy out-of-this-world player gem, but I really think he's just the kind of guy who makes it difficult for you to cut him and makes it hard for you to stash him on your practice squad because he just plays so well. I think Tysheem Johnson goes undrafted because he measures in at 5'9.5" and 195 pounds. Like shorter, smaller safety prospect. But don't be distracted by the measurables. His combine, I guess pro day numbers, he didn't make the combine, but his measurable numbers of size and speed are not anything all that impressive. 40-yard dash time was average, a little slow, honestly, in the 3-cone and some of the other agility drills. This is not a player who is measurable on paper, the dynamic athlete that you got to bring in and we'll teach him how to play football because he's a great athlete. No, this is the opposite. This is a great football player who maybe isn't a super special athlete, but can have a really long career. Maybe the ceiling is a little bit low. Maybe he never does develop into a starting caliber player, but this guy to me seems like he's going to eventually stick on somewhere and be a backup safety for 10 years in the NFL. He's very reliable in coverage. He can tackle well. He'll get physical in the running game, and he can kind of line up all over a defense. He early in his career at Oregon, and I think he was at Ole Miss before that, he was more of a slot cornerback who dabbled in some safety, but then this final season in 2024 became more of a full-time free safety. But Ryan Poles said, he can play some nickel, he can play some safety, he can kind of do a little bit of everything, but he's got the ball skills. He's got the instincts. He can cover deep. He can cover one-on-one underneath in the slot. Again, pretty good tackler as well. He's just a good football player who can do it all. And I don't care that he's a little bit short. I don't care that he's maybe an average athlete. I mean, he played some special teams in college as well, and that's really going to be his pathway to the Bears 53-man roster. I can't help but think about Dennis Allen coaching this guy, and another 5'9" safety Dennis Allen coached with the New Orleans Saints, Tyrann Mathieu. I mean, not at all the same athlete, and I'm not trying to make Tysheem Johnson, I'm trying to put that kind of expectations on Tysheem Johnson, but maybe Dennis Allen looks and says, the height doesn't matter as much for me at safety because I've seen a special player do it at a smaller size, and maybe Tysheem Johnson has, again, I want to be careful here, but maybe he has some similar qualities or abilities to be able to say, hey, maybe the height's not that big of a deal breaker for him, especially when you think about what the Bears have at the safety position where, they didn't draft anyone there. And you've got Kevin Byard entering the last year of his contract, Jaquan Brisker entering the last year of his rookie contract, and your backups are still Jonathan Owens and Elijah Hicks, who are okay backups with some experience, but never starting caliber players. And to me, if somebody like Tysheem Johnson can come in and offer some special teams upside there, and also maybe be worth developing to something more than what Owens and Hicks are, he could beat out one of them, or even just stick as the number 5 safety for some extra depth, the way that Tarvarius Moore did at some points of last season. I mean, we'll see. It's still an uphill battle there, but I think Tysheem Johnson and then the other safety, Major Burns, have a real path there where Jonathan Owens isn't guaranteed anything and Elijah Hicks isn't guaranteed anything. A UDFA that has a really good training camp and preseason could beat either one of those players out. It's unlikely, and I'm not going to bet money on it, but that to me is the clearest path. And I like Tysheem Johnson a bit more than Major Burns, who to me, he's more of a up in the box near the line of scrimmage type of player, a 4-year starter at LSU, a lot more size and length there. He's 6'2", I think, and 200 some odd pounds. And he's kind of played all over too. This final year at LSU, he moved into that hybrid linebacker safety role they usually call the star position. We play some slot, play some linebacker, play some strong safety, but isn't really deep all that much. But prior to this year, he had been more of a true free safety. So he can kind of play all over and led LSU in tackles a couple years ago. But to me, he's just not that good in coverage. He's physical and he's got that kind of swagger and attitude. He's not afraid to get down and dirty, and he's a decent athlete. Really good blitzer, I think, coming down the line of scrimmage, but just doesn't wrap up very well as a tackler all the time. And again, not that great in coverage. I just don't, it's harder to see, again, maybe a good special teams player, but not somebody who's ever going to have a major versatile role on your defense. So again, he played some special teams in college, and maybe that's his way onto the 53, but I'll put my money on Tysheem Johnson between the two safeties. But I think both of them have a real opportunity, in some part because of what else the Bears have and don't have at the safety position, but then also those guys' ability to play on special teams and use that physicality to carve out that kind of role early in their career, while they maybe continue to develop and to grow in the safety position that is where the real money is made down the line. But for now, special teams is how they get on this 53-man roster. I think positional opportunity is kind of the theme here, because we mentioned earlier the Bears brought in 2 defensive ends, 2 edge rushers, after not really drafting a true edge rusher. We'll see where Shamar Turner plays as a rookie, but those guys also have more of an opportunity to compete and win a spot because of where they're drafted and some of the raw talent that they have. So we'll break down Xavier Carlton from the University of California and Jeremy Robinson from Kansas next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by our friends at Amazon with the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Did you know that your Amazon Fire TV can also be an Xbox? That's right, you can turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller and then subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to go. You can dive right into hundreds of premium titles, including EA Sports College Football and Call of Duty, all as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's great because you can try out some of these games or get in them a little bit without having to invest fully in a console and spend all that money. And with the Fire TV Stick, you can take it anywhere. So you can bring you or your kids' games wherever you plug in. You can switch it between televisions, whatever you want to do. It's all available. So head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices including Fire TV Stick 4K, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, and Fire TV Cube. So I think the safeties ultimately are in the best position between the talent that they have and the opportunity that sits in front of them. But I wouldn't rule out either of the defensive ends, edge rushers from making this team either, because while they have different profiles for sure, they are both built in the type of mold of defensive ends in the Dennis Allen style that we know he tends to like bigger, longer defensive ends that are a little bit oversized for the edge that in other teams might play on the interior, but in Chicago are now going to play on the edge. And between the two, Xavier Carlton of California and Jeremy Robinson of Kansas, I'd probably put my money, I mean, you can't really bet on this, but I'd put my weight behind Xavier Carlton of California. Maybe not necessarily like the one that's most NFL ready right now, but the one who I think has the best chance of becoming something to like in the NFL. This guy is 6'6", 273 pounds, tall, long arms, and not just long arms, the largest wingspan of any defensive lineman in this draft. I think, to be technical, I think he tied for the longest wingspan, but his wingspan is 85 and 1/8 inch wingspan. This guy's arms are humongous. Like, he is this physical specimen for Dennis Allen to try and mold. Now, I should say he's big and long and strong, not the freak athlete though. Like, he's Dennis Allen's type in terms of the size, but like very poor, running at the pro day. His 40-yard dash time was over 5 seconds and had pretty low broad jumps, vertical jumps. This is not an explosive athlete off the line of scrimmage. You can see it in his tape. He's not very flexible and bendy to be able to bend the edge. This is a power rusher who can use that length, use his strength, get under your pads and push you. But he doesn't really have like a full-on pass rush repertoire, right? Like the technique there is still limited. So there's an ability to still, you're never going to make him that much faster and more explosive as an athlete, but you can take better advantage of the physical tools that he does have. I think it's similar in the running game where it's like he's got the length to where he sets a really good edge and he's going to redirect running backs back to the inside. But he's not yet really that consistent and proven as like the penetrator playmaker, right? The guy who's not only going to set the edge, but he's going to blow by the tackle and then either make the tackle for the loss or, swarm him back to the other team. Like he'll set the edge and do what he needs to do as far as like checks the box and gets the job done, but not so much above and beyond playmaking, make the big tackle in the backfield. Like sometimes he doesn't always wrap up super well in that regard either. Like the power is there and the size is there, but you can get more out of that, even if maybe you're not going to get a ton more out of the speed and the flexibility there. So I think he has the sort of strength and power to where you can find a role for him early on, and then you can refine the technique a little bit more to get even more out of him. But the lack of speed and explosiveness probably limits the long-term ceiling there. Like, I don't think he ever becomes a 10-sack guy in the NFL, but you can have a long career as a number 3, number 4 defensive end who can get you 3 sacks a season in a rotation and maybe play some special teams for you. Like, yeah. And given where the Bears are at the defensive end position right now, there's a very wide open competition there. You've got Austin Booker right now is kind of your number 3 behind Montez Sweat and Dio Odengbo. And then you've got Daniel Hardy competing with Dominique Robinson and competing with last year's undrafted free agent Jamari Croma. Like, any of those guys not named Austin Booker aren't guaranteed any kind of roster spot this year. And the Bears are going to keep at least 4 defensive ends for sure. So like there's a path for an undrafted free agent like Xavier Carlton to beat out Dominique Robinson, Daniel Hardy, Jamari Croma, and be that number 4 guy and, find your way onto the 53-man roster. If the Bears keep 5 defensive ends, there's an opportunity there too. So, the pathway is there for somebody like Carlton or for somebody like Jeremy Robinson, who was Austin Booker's college teammate at Kansas. They spent 2 or 3 years together. Obviously not this past season, but the years before that, Booker and Robinson were the sort of the bookend edge rushers there. Robinson also has very good length. Even though his height's only 6'2", but his arm length and wingspan is also above 80-inch on the wingspan there. And good size at 262. And definitely a better athlete than Carlton. And I think, more explosive. But for him, the technique as a pass rusher is definitely not there. Like, he can get out of his stance, but his pad level's high, like, right away. And it's like you're not really getting the most out of the placement of the hands and the timing of the punch and the pad level. And it's just like, there's a lot to clean up there. And I think the same thing is true at times in the running game, right? Pad level gets high and can't always be, there's not a consistency in hands and feet are in the right place, leverage in the right place to check the boxes and get the job done. And now Robinson in 2023, 2 years ago, played through most of the season with a torn labrum. And so we were kind of looking for him to make this jump in 2024. And we just didn't really see it. And to me, like, he still was kind of more of like a, average Big 12 defensive end, like outside linebacker more, but edge rusher in that defense. Like, which is a fine college player, but he doesn't jump out to me as like, wow, NFL prospect. Like, if we just cleaned up that, would he become something great? I mean, never, maybe, but I just wasn't seeing like a lot of like special. Like, yeah, there's moments when it clicks and it's like, okay, yeah, that's pretty good, but like, it's not like flashes of like, whoa, it's more like, oh, okay, there it is. But I think there's still a lot of work to do there, and I'm not necessarily gung-ho about him, but we'll see, how it happens when he comes into training camp and gets some work. Because again, he's at a position that lends itself to a player in his spot working his way to the top. I'm just, if I had to bet on somebody, I think it's more Carlton, even despite, I think, Robinson having more speed and explosive, like being a better athlete. But just because he's a better athlete doesn't mean he's like a special athlete. It's just that Carlton, I think, was kind of a below average athlete, and then Robinson is closer to average, so he's a better athlete. But like, I think somebody like Carlton has a higher floor despite not having the athletic tools that might normally get you super excited there. I mean, again, length and size and strength are athletic tools, but not the speed or explosiveness that everyone wants. A sexy, explosive edge rusher, and that's just not him. But power guys can have a nice future. Like, I think about the undrafted free agent from Ole Miss, Jared Ivey, like same kind of thing. Not a great athlete, but just like long, strong, big, physical. I think there's room for that in Dennis Allen's defense. Clearly, though, a theme here of like defensive opportunities for undrafted free agents. And if you think about it, like when we went through that list of UDFAs at the top, you had one running back, 2 wide receivers. That's your entire offensive addition there. So 3 on offense, 2 on special teams, 5 on defense. So clearly an emphasis on getting some defensive guys in this UDFA class. We'll see if the Bears, after the rookie minicamp, if they sign any of their tryout players to add more UDFAs there. But I do want to touch briefly on a couple of the other guys that, don't have as clear of a path to the roster, but I don't think it's out of the question that any of these other guys could crack the lineup. I don't think there's any of these undrafted free agents are not in the spot of like, that's impossible. None of, there's no chance this player is going to make the 53. Maybe the kicker, Jonathan Kim, like, I think the Bears are feeling pretty darn comfortable with Cairo Santos there. So maybe the kicker is the only one you say, no shot at the 53-man roster. Sorry. But the other guys just still have a path there. And I kind of want to break down more quickly what that might look like for a running back, for the wide receivers, for a linebacker, and a long snapper next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by our friends at LinkedIn Jobs. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. And that's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. Because when you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. I'm a member of LinkedIn, and I bet you might be too. If you're not, that's okay. But a lot of your friends, family members, and coworkers are all a part of the LinkedIn community. And that's what makes it such a great place to hire, because there's a bunch of people on there that might not be actively looking for jobs, but if you put the right opportunity in front of them, maybe they could be interested. And that's why 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find high-quality hires. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Safety and defensive line seem like the easiest paths to the 53-man roster, although I might throw in linebacker in there as well. The linebacker Power Echols, Echols, that's one other spot where you're kind of competing with some other backups that aren't guaranteed a roster spot, and it's going to come down to special teams ability there because the Bears never really formally replaced Jack Sanborn. They drafted Ruben Hippolyte in the 4th round, and that's obviously going to be some more clear competition at the linebacker position. But even with Hippolyte in the mix there, it's after Tremaine Edmonds and TJ Edwards, you got Noah Sewell, who was a 5th round pick a couple years ago. You got Amon Anbagmamiga, who they signed as a special teams guy, but hasn't really played much defense throughout his career. And then it's Hippolyte and then some former undrafted free agents like Carl Jones and Swayze Bozeman. Like, if Power Echols comes in there and balls out on special teams, there's a clear opportunity there to be the number 5 or number 6 linebacker on this depth chart and unseat Noah Sewell or unseat Amon Anbagmamiga. Like, I think Edmonds, Edwards, and then Hippolyte are guaranteed roster spots because they're starters and then a 4th round pick this year. But like, Noah Sewell's not guaranteed anything. Amon Anbagmamiga is not guaranteed anything. Those two will probably make the team, most likely. But if somebody like Power Echols comes in as an undrafted free agent and shows you some real ability there, and against particularly on special teams, like he was a 3 or 4 year starter at North Carolina, good instincts and physicality and run defense especially. Doesn't always finish super well. Like, he'll get dirty and messy in there, but just doesn't wrap up. But he's got that mentality of like wanting to be physical and getting down and dirty in there. And then like in coverage, I think pretty good smarts and instincts, but just not a very special athlete, average to below average athlete at linebacker. So you kind of wonder how well he'll be able to hold up against, faster tight ends and running backs, or let alone, wide receivers. Like, in zone coverage, he'll be fine, but trying to keep up with those guys in man-to-man, I'm not as sure. And again, we're talking about an undrafted free agent here, but special teams ability to maybe stick on at linebacker there. He's probably next if I was trying to rank who's got the best shot at the roster there. The running back Deion Hankins is interesting to me. He's got some similarities to Roschon Johnson, more of a power back, 222 pounds, but actually ran pretty well in the 40-yard dash. It was like a 4.53-ish in there. Not all that explosive in the short area, but like just a really solid physical football player. He was the starter at UTEP for 3 or 4 years there, but then after his sort of like redshirt, after his 4th year, the coach at UTEP got fired, so he entered the transfer portal, decided to transfer back to his hometown of Texas State University. He's in his hometown, where he grew up, and kind of got buried on the depth chart there. Went from the starter at UTEP to like a backup at Texas State and really didn't do a ton his final year. But like, this guy's hard to tackle. He's hard to bring down. He's a fun running back to watch, and he has some experience on special teams as well. So like, yes, Hankins would have to beat out, Travis Homer for special teams opportunity at running back. Your 7th round pick, Kyle Monungai, is going to be in that conversation at running back. And then you've got last year's undrafted free agent, Ian Wheeler, who we all seem to like at training camp and preseason last year. So running back's a little bit stacked, but I do like Deion Hankins as a prospect, someone who's probably, a practice squad player for now, but maybe there's something there with the physicality and the power and some decent speed, some underrated speed, I'd say, for a 222-pound running back. 2 undrafted free agent wide receivers kind of seem like long shots to me, but they're both intriguing. J.P. Richardson from TCU is kind of more of a slot guy, but he was teammates with Jeff Besh and Savion Williams there and had the most missed tackles of any of those 3 receivers. I think he tied with Savion Williams, but he's surprisingly shifty for a 5'11" slot receiver who's not like a dynamic athlete. He's just smart route runner and hard to bring down. I don't really see a roster spot for him, but there's a lot to like there. And then the other wide receiver, Ja'Day Walker from Texas A&M, is much more of the raw height, weight, speed freak, like 6'2", 200 plus pounds, and ran a 4.4 40-yard dash. Big, fast, strong, and can catch the ball. Bring him in, give him a shot, develop him. But when you've got DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Luther Burden, Olamide Zaccheaus, Devin Duvernay, Tyler Scott, like those 6 are clearly your top 6 wide receivers. And then on top of that, you've got Miles Boykin and Maurice Alexander and Samori Toure. Like, they've got other veteran special teams type players that both these undrafted free agent wide receivers would have to compete with to make the 53-man roster. Like, it seems unlikely that either of those guys is really going to crack that. One on the practice squad, absolutely. But 53, not so much. And I think the other guy that has the best shot then is the long snapper, Luke Elkin from Iowa. I have no long snapper analysis to provide you there. I'm not going to watch long snapper tape. It's not worth watching long snapper tape. I double checked. Like, he didn't miss a tackle last season at Iowa. So, okay, that's something, but I can't. I looked up some different NFL draft long snapper rankings, and he wasn't cracking the top of the list, but you never know when that's the one position that rarely gets drafted, and most of the long snappers in the NFL were UDFAs. He's probably not going to beat out Scott Daly in year one, but Scott Daly is in his 30s, veteran long snapper there. It's nice to have another long snapper in the chamber, I guess, and you never know who could win that. It's a snap off. Whoever snaps better. I don't know. That's all the long snapper analysis I've got for you, but that's pretty much the Bears' undrafted free agent class. Already mentioned the kicker, Jonathan Kim. I didn't even do much work on him because unless Cairo Santos gets hurt, Jonathan Kim's not going to make this 53-man roster. I'm still fascinated, though, that the Bears announced this 10-player UDFA class, and none of them were offensive linemen. None of them were tight ends or quarterbacks either, but those are the only, and I guess no cornerbacks or DBs, but no corners, no QBs, no tight ends, but especially no offensive linemen. You don't sign a single undrafted free agent offensive lineman. It's like, yeah, the Bears have what quick math says 16 offensive linemen under contract. So it's not as though they, need it's not as though they have a bunch of holes in terms of camp bodies they need to add, but like, I'm just surprised they don't have any UDFAs there. Like, it's a pretty wide open competition there. And that seems like an opportunity for an undrafted player to come in and compete. Like, sure, maybe offensive tackle is a little bit loaded now with Amagaji and Trapilo and Braxton Jones all competing there, and you still have Theo Bennett coming back. But on the interior, right, a UDFA could come in and beat out 6th-round pick Luke Newman. Or a UDFA could come in and beat out Bill Murray, who was also an undrafted free agent. Or a UDFA could come out and beat Doug Kramer, who we've seen struggle. Like, this is a prime opportunity for an undrafted offensive lineman to compete and earn a spot on this 53-man roster. Unlikely, but it's as good of an opportunity as any position on this roster, and I'm surprised the Bears didn't sign any of them, and I am half expecting that at the end of the weekend rookie minicamp, they may end up signing whatever was the biggest standout lineman from that minicamp. But the fact that they didn't prioritize that more among UDFAs was a little bit surprising to me. I guess I know they drafted 2 of them, a tackle and a guard, but like, they're undrafted players. They don't cost you anything. I just would thought there'd be some kind of undrafted free agent prospect that say, yeah, you know what? Let's bring him in and give him a look. Because it literally doesn't cost anything against the salary cap, and you've got 90 roster spots you can fill with, and get more. You can never have too many good offensive linemen. So that one, we'll see how that plays out over the weekend. But whatever kind of nuggets we get from rookie minicamp, any kind of standouts or new players added to the mix, you can be sure we'll break them all down for you right here in the Locked On Bears podcast. So make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, because that's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So coming back on Monday, make Locked On Bears your first listen once again for another opportunity to bear down.